last 5 years, we were able to generate something like 9 million jobs in the different projects that we're implementing.
Ang
So for
dami.
2021 alone po, we were able to generate 2 million jobs. So maganda
2
po
million
job generation.
jobs? Really?
Yes, kasi po, for example, in the construction industry, we are implementing an average of 20 to 25,000 projects a year. Eh, ang ibang projects nag-spill over the following year. So, the construction industry po kasi is one of the economic contributors sa ating
Totoo yan.
GDP. No? And
yan.
lead actors po sa construction industry would be the civil engineers.
Oo, totoo
So,
yan.
meron kang mga, So, marami pong civil engineers ang may job opportunities sa government construction industry alone. Not counting yung private construction industry na kung nakita nyo po, even during the pandemic, the first responder para ma-revive yung economy is the construction industry.
True, very true.
Hindi ba?
Totoo yan. Hindi,
Nakita
medyo
niyo po
yan
So,
ang sektor. Oo, totoo yan.
We
Yan
were
yung
able to
sektor.
adapt quickly. We were able to adapt quickly to the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay. Uy, maya-maya lamang tatanungin natin si Asek Adoran. Ano naman yung mga sabihin natin na yung sa mga bagong graduates na engineers. Kasi yung iba, ayaw mag-hire ng bago kasi sabi niya, ay wala pang experience yan. Di ba ganun, di ba? Wala pang experience yan.
Sin mancha y sin duda. Manjunto con el vosotros lifetime friend.
Iyo si Ronda Gisela Castes Santos. Circle election. So debe, uwi kita mga palabra din mga kandidato si ko sa sila ay opreseka natin. Iyo si Ronda Cristina Perez. Siya na kita kada equal opinion ka circle mga issue politikal. Kada uno siya na mga political bet, pero mas mejor si konosi kita ko del mga kandidato kita ko de este venidero eleksyon. Baka puro palabra lang debe, siya na palabra de honor.
Na programa Palabra y Honor. Aquí, ang mula kita con el diadong abilidad para escrutina, manhimay-himay, manchalgal, discutir punto por punto con el diadong mga kandidato quien quiere servir la ciudad y na país. Derecho al cuento, buhay preno-preno para el bien del pueblo soberano. Palabra y Honor. A las 8 hasta las 10 del aga, lunes hasta viernes. Aquí lang na RPN y Triple X Zamboanga.
RPN, the Leader Network. D Triple X, 1008 kilohertz, the voice of the Leader Network in Zamboanga City.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda.
D Triple X Zamboanga.
Kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng
That is despite allegations of political influence to supposedly favor one presidential candidate. Our Melissa Lopez has more.
Kamala Commissioner Amy Ferolino downplayed the impact of controversies lobbed against her and the poll body in her first public statement since she was accused of conniving to favor presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos.
I think despite the issues that cropped up during the past days, it's just between some people and not the commission as a whole. So I think that minor issue will not affect the credibility of the commission as a whole. Whatever the results will be,
It's not dependent.
it's not dependent on a few people.
We have the machine,
which remains impartial.
Ferolino assures the integrity of the upcoming polls is intact after retired Kamala Commissioner Rowena Guanzon accused her of giving in to political influence to delay the release of the decision on the disqualification cases of Marcos. The embattled poll executive refuses to comment on Akbayan Party List's call for her to inhibit from the upcoming review of the dismissed cases against Marcos.
Acting
Acting COMELEC Chairman Socorro Inting says expect a swift decision on the disqualification cases now on appeal before the DNBAC. She also invites over 67 million Filipinos to go out and vote on May 9 as the poll body has signed a voter education campaign deal with Vote Pilipinas.
Ang pagparehistro,
Kung hindi po tayo
boboto.
bumoto po tayo
sa anwere ng Mayo.
Madali lang po
gawin ito.
Mas pinadali
ng COMELEC at ng Vote Pilipinas.
The group seeks to raise the voter turnout from 76% in 2019 to over 80%. That's as much as 58 million ballots cast.
A week into the
official campaign period, COMELEC also looks to ease restrictions for physical events, including lifting the face shield requirement to mirror latest IATF rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, may pandemya pa po. Kaya mahalaga yung mga restrictions na inilagay ng COMELEC sa in-person campaigning.
Inting says more supporters may be allowed to attend face-to-face sorties with declining COVID-19 cases, but still with precaution. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
A look at what presidential candidates are up to. Bongbong Marcos and running mate Sara Duterte hold their campaign in Ilocos Norte, the stronghold of the Marcoses. Duterte earlier visited Nueva Vizcaya, Isabela, and Cagayan provinces. Getting the support of the so-called Solid North is crucial for the Davao City Mayor. Back in 2016, her father, President Duterte, only won in Ilocos Norte and all the provinces in northern Luzon. Denny Robredo visited the indigenous community in Ati, Boracay, Naklan. She vowed she will not allow them to be driven away or abandoned if she wins the presidency. Back in 2012, Vice President's late husband, Interior Secretary Jesse Robredo, stopped the eviction of the community from the island. Manny Pacquiao took a train at the PNR Buendia station in Makati here in Metro Manila. He says he wants to see what commuters go through every day and that it was his first time to take a train here in the nation's capital. Retired boxing champ vowed to improve public transportation if he becomes president. Now, if he wins the elections, Isko Moreno said he will appoint his rival Ping Lacson to the government.
Senator Ping Lacson is an asset of the country. That I guarantee. Kasi meron siyang particular skill set na kapakipakinabang para sugpuin yung isang suliranin ng ating pamayanan. Kailangan ko ng katulad yung qualities ni Senator Ping Lacson to address corruption and discipline in the government.
And Lacson renewed his commitment to address what he called bloated government bureaucracy. He said there is no need to establish new agencies during disasters and calamities. Lacson added the Office of the President would be enough to consolidate efforts of agencies. Over a week into the campaign period, election officials take down posters and billboards that do not conform to COMELEC guidelines. Stanley Geheta takes us through Operation Baklas.
Aside from exceeding election expenses, other violations noted by the COMELEC during the campaign period include oversized campaign materials and posting them in unauthorized areas.
This led the COMELEC and the MMDA to navigate EDSA from Pasay City to Caloocan City during its second region-wide Operation Baklas. COMELEC is giving 72-hour notice to partisan groups or party lists to remove campaign materials that exceed the prescribed size of 2 by 3 feet. COMELEC says the MMDA will forcibly discard them in case the notice to remove them is ignored.
Bago pa magsimula yung campaign period ay nagbibigay na tayo ng notisya dun sa mga may hawak ng mga billboard na yun at dun sa mga taong na pipicturan doon sa billboard.
In one area in Pasay City, COMELEC took down a huge billboard of a presidential and vice presidential tandem after they denied owning it. Huge billboards are not allowed under COMELEC ruling, but official headquarters of candidates can display up to 3 feet by poster materials. There are common poster areas designated by the COMELEC and local government units. But lampposts, power cables, bridges, and walls are not among them. If proven, violators can face up to 6 years in prison. But COMELEC admits there are still numerous pending cases of violations from previous elections. The rule does not affect private properties as long as posters at houses and offices abide by the prescribed 2x3 feet measurement regardless of quantity. Meanwhile, in a statement, election lawyer Romulo Macalintal argues that COMELEC has no right and power to simply remove election campaign materials on a private property. Macalintal says even putting a limit on the size of the campaign materials is out of COMELEC's jurisdiction. The poll body says anyone can pursue legal action if they believe the COMELEC rules are unconstitutional.
If anyone feels that they have an action against the COMELEC, they should pursue that action.
The COMELEC says today's operation was a success as many political groups complied early, immediately removing unauthorized campaign materials. But they are expecting more violations as the local campaign period begins next month.
Despite his previous confirmation, Deputy House Deputy Speaker Vito Atienza begs off from the seat in Philippines vice presidential debate. In a letter dated Tuesday, Atienza cited his doctor's advice to undergo knee replacement surgery as soon as possible after figuring in an accident during the proclamation rally last February 8. There are still 7 VP vets who have committed to join the debate on February 26th. Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte earlier said she could not attend but did not say why. CNN Philippines will also host a presidential debate on February 27th. We need answers from the men who are seeking the highest office of the land.
Unfiltered, edit, coming soon.
A CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022 Presidential Debate. More stories ahead as Filipinos face uncertainty amid the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. A top foreign affairs official vows to ensure their safety. And 82 days before the Filipino votes, supporters are getting more creative in campaigning for their candidates. Details when we return.
MX3 dahil ito ay napatunayang may alpha, beta, at gamma mangosteen. MX3 capsule helps avoid pain discomfort para iwas sakit. Tested and proven na low sodium, cholesterol-free, at fat-free. Dito ako sa tunay, natural, at original. MX3.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Amid the darkness, look on the bright side. The future of work is now at Unilever Philippines. With the pandemic still going on, the company is continuing to adapt and support their employees in this new normal through several initiatives. Learning and development are not under lockdown. Unilever's employees get access to upskilling seminars and master classes online. Another focus is the workers' well-being physically and mentally. Among its initiatives is a vaccination rollout that also includes the dependents of its employees in providing free sessions with a psychologist and a nutritionist. Work engagement is likewise flexible with UWork. Under UWork, people who want to work for fewer months than they do today can do so and still get compensation and benefits. Then there's moving everyone into hybrid work. Unilever believes that a blend of work from home and face-to-face collaboration is the next step, with the latter being extremely important for innovation.
Working from home for the past 2 years, then you must have experienced the benefits of that. We love the flexibility, but if we're honest with ourselves, there were also disadvantages. For us at Unilever, we're going to pivot to hybrid working. We're going to do 2 to 3 days at the workplace, and the balance of that is spent at home, so you have the best of both worlds.
Unilever looks to continue pivoting and making the company future fit for its employees. I'm Sam Tadwani, CNN Philippines.
You're watching Newsnight on CNN Philippines, while tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to mount. The government says it is working with other countries to evacuate Filipino nationals in Ukraine. Tristan Modalo has the details.
The Foreign Affairs Department vows to ensure the safety of Filipinos in Ukraine amid the brewing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy-Locsin Jr. says that he is now on top of the situation and currently making calls to other countries to ensure the safe passage of Filipinos out of Ukraine.
In a series of tweets, Locsin says that the main priority is the safe evacuation of Filipinos to the closest borders. He adds he's reaching out to countries like Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia on the west part of Ukraine, while he's speaking with Romania and Moldova on the southern part. Locsin also assigned 2 DFA officials to facilitate the evacuation or repatriation of Filipinos from the Eastern European country. Locsin adds it will be a land journey going to the borders, and he expects the United States to secure the safe passage of Filipinos from Ukraine. The DFA has yet to provide details of the evacuation plan, including the number of Filipinos who have expressed their intention to flee amid the escalating tension. The DFA adds the situation in Ukraine remains fluid. In a televised speech, US President Joe Biden appeals to Russia not to invade Ukraine. He says no one wants a bloody and senseless war. Biden says he's still hoping that diplomacy will prevail.
If Russia does invade in the days and weeks ahead, human costs for Ukraine will be immense. And the strategic cost for Russia will also be immense. If Russia attacks Ukraine, it will be met with overwhelming international condemnation. The world will not forget that Russia chose needless death and destruction. Invading Ukraine will prove to be a self-inflicted wound.
Biden adds that some 150,000 troops from Russia are now surrounding Ukraine, but he insists that the United States, its allies and partners are ready to respond decisively should Russia attack Ukraine. Tristan Modalo, CNN Philippines.
The country sees fewer than 3,000 new COVID-19 cases for the second straight day. The health department listed nearly 2,700 new infections, pushing the nationwide tally to over 3.6 million. Active cases are at 68,800. 77 more people died. Over 6,100 got well. Positivity rate, or the percentage of people who tested positive for COVID-19, fell to 9.6%. This is the lowest since the beginning of the year. 6 laboratories did not submit data. In other news, Filipino citizens and resident aliens may now use their national IDs as proof of identity and age. President Duterte has ordered all government agencies and private companies to allow the use of the Philippine Identification System, or PhilSys ID, and number in their transactions. The national ID may replace a birth certificate in applying for a marriage license, student driver's permit, or conductor's license, among others. Some presidential candidates clash over the decades-old armed struggle in the country. For one, hopeful people take up arms because of violence and injustice. But for another, rising up against the government is unacceptable. Javier has that story and other highlights at the debate hosted by a TV network owned by a controversial pastor.
Out of the 10 candidates vying for the country's top post, only 4 appeared in a live debate Tuesday night. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos, former presidential spokesman Ernesto Abella, Labor leader Leody de Guzman, and former defense chief Norberto Gonzales answered questions about various issues affecting Filipinos. This is the first time Marcos appeared alongside his opponents after skipping a presidential forum and interview. All four candidates were in favor caliber of pushing peace talks to end rebellion in the country. But the Guzman sparred with Marcos over the cause of armed struggle.
Tingin ko walang tao na gusto mong lumaban ng armado sa gobyerno, pero maabot sa ganun eh. Dahil yung kasaysayan ng ating bansa ay puro panunupil at gumagamit ng dahas. Umapatay. Panahon ni Marcos, panahon ni Duterte.
Kahit anong paliwanag ang gagawin mo, hindi ako maaaring sumang-ayon sa ideolohiya na may kasamang armed struggle para pabagsakin ang gobyerno.
Ayaw namin ng welga, ayaw namin ng rally. Pero kung kami pinagsasamantalahan ng mga kapitalista, mahantong kami sa welga.
Marcos also praised the anti-communist body's efforts, but says it is not the only solution. The presidential bets were united on the issue of publicizing their statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALIN. All four were willing to release it publicly, including Marcos, who earlier hesitated because it may be weaponized.
Nasa sa bawat opisyal na yan kung sila ba ay handa na ilabas ang kanilang salin. Kapag ako ay susulat muli ng salin, ito ay gagawin kong public information.
The South China Sea dispute and foreign policy also took the spotlight in the debate. Abella and Gonzalez backed the creation of a regional fishing agreement to help our fishermen.
We're trying to set up a board of agricultural investment who could probably bridge a conversation with this competing interests. I would still go back to having a multilateral relationship regarding that matter. So I would still refer back to ASEAN plus China.
ASEAN, yes. Because we belong to ASEAN. We need our neighbors in this business. But if we want to engage with other countries like China, then we have to talk to other big countries in the area.
The Guzman and Marcos meanwhile said we should use diplomacy to assert our arbitral win. On the issue of election spending, the candidates could not give an exact figure on how much they spent so far for campaigns. But they assured that proper accounting will be done as required by the Commission on Elections. One pressing matter was left out was the COVID-19 pandemic, which has crippled the country for 2 years now. Six candidates did not attend for various reasons, including not being invited by the moderator. In a statement, SMNI President Marlon Rosete said the non-attendance of some candidates was not their loss. Page Javier, CNN Philippines.
SMNI is owned by embattled televangelist Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, who is wanted in the United States for sex trafficking charges. The wide lead of presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos in pre-election surveys can be attributed to his social media strategy. That's according to the president of the research organization Strat-based ADR Institute, Dino Manhit. Manhit explains the social media network of Marcos has been consistent in pushing specific narratives. According to the group's data, some of these narratives include Marcos being the most qualified to make the country great again, his father's years in the presidency being the golden age, and the Marcos Duterte tandem being unstoppable. But Manhit notes pre-election surveys do not predict the results of the upcoming polls. He says the survey merely reflects people's sentiments at the particular time it was conducted. Social media full of a wide variety of opinions as election day nears, but on the ground, Alabarcelon tells us the winner the campaign is, the better.
Supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo take turns in painting their town pink on Valentine's Day. Among them, differently abled persons, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, and the so-called mga guwapo for Leni. Memes and handwritten signs were also part of the ploy for the VP supporters, yet some, like this man during a motorcade, are getting up close and personal. Robredo's rival, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, also has his share of expressive supporters. Some of them are bringing portraits of Bongbong's controversial parents, ex-President Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda. BBM, as he is also referred to by netizens, keenly takes selfies with his supporters and reaches out to hold their hand. The same hand-holding, selfie-taking, and jostling hold true for Manila Mayor Isko Moreno's campaign sorties. Moreno went on a second tour of Laguna today, parts parts of his hands and arms were bandaged.
Baliwala yung mga sakit na yan sa hirap na dinaranas ng tao. Yung mabigyan lang natin sila ng kaligayahan, makamayan, masaya na ako.
Binabantayan ko maigi yung kamay niya kasi palala ng palala. Kasi nga bawat motorcade natin, maraming lumalapit sa kanya, minsan nakakalmot, yung mga sing-sing. Prior to the official campaign period, Senator Manny Pacquiao's supporters flocked his sorties. The Pac-Man openly handed out cash then. Now, selfies should do. Meanwhile, the tandem of Senator Ping Lacson and Senate President Tito Soto say they like smaller gatherings than big rallies, preferring a more disciplined campaign. But there are times this discipline is tested, just like what happened in Quezon City and Davao del Norte recently.
Baka maging super spreader kasi pag tumotorcade, mahirap awatin o i-control yung tao na nasa tabing daan. Kaya kami medyo as much as possible, we're encouraging our local supporters na huwag mag-schedule ng motorcade.
If there's anything beyond this pandemic, it's how Filipinos find ways to support their candidates. And with a little over 80 days left in the campaign period, the road to May 9 will be rough and wild for politicians and their supporters. In Calamba City, Laguna, Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
Straight ahead, 14 titles later, the Alaska Aces are saying goodbye to the league. What do netizens have to say about the exit? We take a look at how sports fans are taking the news after a quick break.
Sure ba talaga dito?
Ano ka ba? Mabait si Peppa. Sige po.
Ano po, Mr. Farito? Sir. Aba, laki ng supermarket dito ah. Bili tayo ng drinks. Ako na po ang drinks. Sige na. Gutom na ako. Wala mo kami, Mike. So, paano? Magbiyahe ba tayo? Sir, natuto na po kayo. Sir, plan yan. Development ng part ng Tarlac ah. Sir, sawit ka na po ito. Tingin mo sa akin. Cheap? Sir, hindi po. Joke lang. Sir, tingin po ako. Thanks. Next time ulit. Miggy.
Not some! Woo!
Manong Joe po.
At Tata Maita.
Good news! Muling bumaba ang overall electricity rates. Halos 12 centavos per kilowatt hour ang decrease ngayong buwan.
Ngayong Valentine's month, nakakamiss mag-family movie date. May big screen, hot popcorn, at mamanig na sinihan. Pero syempre, mas safe to stay at home. May bright ideas si Engineer Joel para dyan.
Keep your loved ones safe. Mag-cine experience at home. Ang Smart TV, 80 centavos lang per hour ang konsumo. At para kumpleto, mag-popcorn at aircon. Kung virtual date naman, 18 centavos per hour ang paggamit ng laptop.
Kahit magkalayo, together tayo.
How sweet! Safe na, cost-efficient pa.
Hanggang sa susunod na
Meralco Advisory.
Welcome back. The Country Seoul Winter Olympics representative Asa Miller ends his campaign at the Beijing event today after failing to finish his slalom run. The alpine skier faltered midway the ice river course of the Yanqing National Alpine Ski Center. Miller also registered a DNF or did not finish in his giant slalom run on Sunday. It is also the end of the road for a PBA team, with the Alaska Aces announcing this will be the final season in the league. Get the details from Pauline Versosa.
The final
buzzer has sounded for one of the PBA's most storied franchises. In a shocking statement on Wednesday, the Alaska Aces announced they are leaving the league after more than 3 decades.
Once we sold the company, I knew that at some point this might be an eventuality, and it's just come to a situation where the company wants to refocus their efforts. But it's been an amazing journey. Really tough. Guys, I want to thank you.
From their debut in 1986, Alaska built their team from the ground up and went on to win 14 championships, including a rare Grand Slam in 1996, led by Tim Cohn, who is now the winningest coach in PBA history. The team also produced legends including Johnny Barrientos, Kenneth Duremdes, and Jojo Lastimosa, who all landed in the league's 25 greatest players list. But after 35 seasons, the Aces are bidding farewell, with the team set to finish the remainder of the ongoing Governor's Cup.
There are no immediate buyers at this point in time, but it remains a possibility that we can sell our franchise to another company if they want to come in at the end of the season. If there is not a buyer at that time, the franchise will revert to the PBA, and pursuant to the bylaws of the PBA, the players will go into a dispersal draft.
The organization assures that players and the coaching staff will be taken care of as they transition into the next chapter of their careers. Fans are calling it an end of an era and a sad day in Philippine basketball. Players and sports personalities also took to social media to honor the franchise. Even with their days numbered, Oitengsu says the team is not throwing in the towel yet as they go for their 15th PBA title one last time.
I have no intention of dismantling the team before the end of the conference. You know, I think every player on our team would like to win a championship, ring in their last dance.
William Verzosa, CNN Philippines.
For more reactions from PBA fans online, with some mourning the team's exit and others fearing the possible departure of more franchises from the league. Many of the squad's fans paid tribute with a hashtag, just as Mr. Oitengsu said, "Wala pa rin tatalos Alaska," a line from a well-loved commercial jingle. And the Cyber Citizen thanks some iconic players and mentors such as Tim Cohn and Bong Hawkins. They also recall the team's 1996 Grand Slam, which refers to a win of all 3 conference championships in the PBA. And in music, another member of the K-pop sensation BTS catches COVID-19. The group's label confirms V tested positive for the virus after he exhibited a mild sore throat. Wicked Music adds V had no close contact with other members and is undergoing treatment at home. 4 other members previously contracted the virus and have since recovered. But it seems the show must go on for BTS with 3 permission to dance on stage concerts scheduled for next month in Seoul Olympic Stadium. Fans who cannot make it in person can also watch the March 10 and 13 shows online. The March 12 performance will be up for live viewing in theaters globally. And that is it for now. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pilar Tavares for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
The 3 Triple X Zamboanga, for every 100, we've got it covered in the Philippines' largest network. This is Radio Philippines Network, the power, the first, the leader. The Triple X Zamboanga. Wherever you want it, we've got it covered in the Philippines' largest network. This is Radio Philippines Network. The power, the first, the leader.
El de con todo suena, claro y vapor sa estasyon de radio na entero Weste Mindanao. RPN D-Triple-X, Radio Ronda, Zamboanga.
D-Triple-X. Radio on the go.
Jefe del Barrio, Maga Consierne de Barangay. Asunto hasta ahora hindi pa tapon ni atensyon, inuway solusyon mismo. El programa Jefe del Barrio, RPN D-Triple-X Zamboanga. Amo sirvi puente para sa basico sa eleksyon y contestasyon de ustedes mga oficial del barangay. Lunes hasta viernes a las 10 del aga junto con Ronda April Boy Regino. Jefe del Barrio.
Look out with the leader, D-Triple-X Zamboanga. Now.
Manada ba tu pregunta? Tiene ba tu duda? Apekto ba tu na istorya? Preparo ba tu? Dale el confianza? Sin mancha y sin duda. Manjunto con el vosotros lifetime friend.
Iyo si Ronda Gisela Castel Santos. Sir, ka-eleksyon, so bebe, umitin ng mga palabra din mga kandidato si ko sa sila ay opresek.
People worldwide are living longer thanks to more people embracing healthier lifestyle changes plus advances in medicine as well as nutrition. In our country, though, the number of older people is increasing rapidly, faster than the growth of the total population. Tacking on extra years is a welcome development, but not when you're riddled with chronic illnesses. Genetics can play a factor to living longer lives, but keeping healthy at any age is up to you. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're here to build a healthier future for you. Aging comes with health challenges. By being aware of these conditions and taking the appropriate steps, we can avoid getting sick as we age. To help us with today's discussion, let's welcome Dr. Lourdes Carolina Dumlao. She's a geriatrician at St. Luke's Medical Center and the president of the Philippine Society of Geriatrics and Gerontology. Also with us is Dr. Karen Estepa Garcia. She's a family and community medicine specialist at Manila Doctors Hospital and UPPGH. Dr. Sandy, what happens to our bodies when we age?
So we know that biologic age is basically your chronologic age. It's how old you are based on what year you were born and the number of years that you've been alive. But when we say aging, it can also happen on several levels because if you compare let's say a 91-year-old versus a 65-year-old, you may actually see that the 65-year-old is less active, more frail than a 91-year-old who can still manage to dance, get up and leave the house all by herself.
Now, Dr. Sandy, first, let's go over what cellular aging is.
It's actually the progressive decline of your body's resistance to stress and other cellular damages. So we know that we're made up of different cells, and these cells have a programmed cell death. No? They can't divide indefinitely. They can't function forever. So at some point, it will either turn off, which is what we call cell senescence, or they die, which we call apoptosis, or they can become abnormal, like what happens in cancer. No? So this is what we term as cellular aging. Now, other theories like hormonal aging is the ability of our hypothalamus to regulate hormones in the body. The hypothalamus is a part of our brain that regulates a lot of the body processes, no? Like our heart rates and blood pressures, temperature, fluid and electrolyte balance, including your thirst. It regulates appetite and your body weight. It regulates secretions in your stomach and intestines, and even your sleep.
Hormones play a huge role in aging, especially during childhood when they help build bones and muscles for that matter. And they also facilitate the development of secondary male or female characteristics. Now, Dr. Karen, Is this where menopause for women and andropause for men come in?
At this point in time, wherein menopause happens during aging and andropause happens in aging for males. So menopause, there are a lot of changes that occurs here for the female, and it's actually one factor that determines the aging process, especially if there is already low estrogen in the blood, okay, of female or our older adult patients.
Aging caused by accumulative damage naman is about the external factors that build up over time. So this is your exposure to toxins, pollutions, unhealthy food. Now, Dr. Karen, what happens to the body over time when exposed to these?
When we are exposed to these unhealthy toxins and also our health condition actually declines, it actually increases the chance for a rapid increase in aging. Okay, so these are some measures that we want to be controlled while we are young, but this happens when we get older. That the effect of that exposure to that toxins.
Mm-hmm. Now, Doc Sandy, what about metabolic aging naman? Explain this for to our viewers, please.
Metabolic aging is just the basal metabolic rate, no, or how many calories your bodies burn at rest. So you will notice that as you age, your body is able to burn calories less efficiently, so that even if you're eating less, you can still gain weight. And so we see that this slows down as people age. So the less active, the lower the basal metabolic rate, then they also lose muscle mass. So it turns into fat.
Aging for men as well as women can be an entirely different experience. Dr. Karen, tell us naman about this one.
The factor that I would probably consider as important here are in relation to hormones. These are biologic factors wherein as women starts to menopause or during the perimenopausal period, the levels of estrogen lowers down and increases the aging process, while that of men, testosterone level is still increasing, and it actually slows down the aging. So there are also studies that will tell us, Dr. Fred, that men increases their inflammation, okay, as they get older. So it increases their chance of developing diseases as they get older.
So what kind of mindset should we have when we do approach the latter years?
So what I often tell my patients, actually, the only people who don't grow old are those that died young. So, like you said, aging is inevitable. But I don't want people to think of it as aging being a negative thing. Because since aging is a natural process of life, then we want to be able to embrace it and be prepared for it. So I always encourage my patients to be active, to make plans. Not just because you are turning 60, which people here in the Philippines anticipate a lot, because they officially become senior citizens, doesn't mean that you are limited in the number of activities that you can do. A lot of people will say that once they turn 60, their lives will change. But this is really a mindset. No? It's not a given.
Now, it's one thing to see gray hairs, wrinkles, but as we grow older, they become apparent in the way we feel. Now, in addition to our outside appearance, changes do happen in the inside. We'll talk about this more when we return. We're your connection to healthcare. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. From blurry vision to brittle bones, a number of health conditions can show up as we age. And we have to be wary of these so we can stay healthier longer. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're together in health. Dr. Sandy, what are the common health conditions associated with aging?
So the most common changes in aging are usually hearing and visual changes, osteoporosis and osteoarthritis. Older patients are also more prone to developing depression, dementia. And of course, there's already the complications of chronic medical conditions conditions like diabetes, hypertension. And I think the most important is when they reach older, we have what we call geriatric syndromes. And these are complex groups of symptoms or diseases that may have significant impact in the functionality and lifestyle of older patients.
I want to talk about bones for that matter, because healthy bones are critical to senior health. And as we age, our bodies begin to absorb old bone tissue faster than it can create new ones. And this means that our bones tend to become thinner and weaker, and this leads to a condition known as osteoporosis. Dr. Karen, is this something that can be prevented?
So what are the measures that can help us prevent osteoporosis? So as we get older, our bones tend to shrink in size and density. So we tell our patients to increase their calcium intake. There is a recommended allowance of daily calcium intake for older adults, and this is around 1,200 milligrams per day. And also to get adequate amounts of vitamin D, either through sunlight, or there are also sources in our diet that gives us good source of vitamin D. Your fish, your eggs, your mga vitamin D supplements. And also increase physical activity.
Dr. Sandy, let's talk about mga vision problems sa mga tumatanda. What are the common ones, and can these be prevented?
The most common one would probably be cataracts. No? We know that there is anatomical changes in the eyes as you change. Some of the structural changes include muscle atrophy, so your eyelids can become thinner. That's why they tend to droop. When you look at older people, it's like their eyes are 1/3 closed. There's also dryness in the eyes, but in spite of the dryness, they can have tears falling out because there's less effective draining in the ducts because they narrow as you age, in spite of the decrease in tears production. The whitish portion of your eyes, which we call the conjunctiva, may also turn yellow as you age. Those are usually cholesterol deposits. The pupils, which are the part of your eyes that contract when there is bright light, also becomes more sluggish. And that's why as you age, you notice that you are more susceptible to bright lights, and night vision becomes poorer because the ability of your eyes to accommodate light becomes slower.
What can seniors do, or those who are getting older? How can they address any hearing concerns that they may have?
So there's also really age-related hearing loss, which we call presbycusis. No? Again, anatomical changes because the muscles in the ear atrophy as we age. And the most common is high-frequency sounds will decrease. It can be hard for them to distinguish conversational speech. One of the most important things is actually older patients should be recognized as possibly having hearing impairments. So people talking to them should recognize this and try not to speak over and above background noise.
Age-related memory loss causes one to be forgetful and can become confused with tasks like paying the bills or following directions. Dr. Karen, can this affect everyone?
Yes, it can affect older adults, but as to the timing of it happening is something that we cannot yet predict. Okay, so it's something that might happen as early on or later in their life.
Are there things, Dr. Karen, that people can do to hopefully prevent this?
Just as the body needs physical activity, so does we also need to stimulate our brain in order to prevent the cognitive decline that can occur as we get older. Okay, so what I tell my patients is to, involve yourself in exercises for brain exercises. These are mind game exercises to help stimulate.
Now, arthritis is another common condition that can happen as we age. Now, Dr. Sandy, is this inevitable as people grow older? Can this be prevented? How is this treated?
Actually, osteoarthritis is not inevitable. No? This is also what we call wear and tear on the bones. So there are certain predisposing factors that can lead to osteoarthritis, namely activity in early portions of life. So you will notice that patients who are very active in weight-bearing sports like running can develop osteoarthritis earlier on than patients who were not involved in those types of sports. Patients who are heavy will also develop osteoarthritis earlier. Some patients will not develop osteoarthritis at all, especially if they are relatively lighter in weight and remained moderately active throughout their lifetime.
As we age, our heart works harder to pump blood throughout our body. Dr. Sandy, can you name some of the more common conditions when it comes to the heart?
Hypertension is probably the leading cause of heart problems. No? And hypertension is what we now consider to be a lifestyle disease. In the earlier years, I think hypertension would only occur in patients who are in their 40s or 50s. But now we even see patients who are 20s who have hypertension. And this is because of lifestyle choices like diet, sedentary lifestyle, or the lack of activity.
Because our immune system gets weaker as we age. For example, getting a flu might not be a cause of concern for younger people, but for seniors, there's a greater risk for complications. Dr. Karen, what can happen when they get the flu?
Subtle signs like loss of appetite, or they just become weak, or changes in their moods, are already subtle signs that will tell us that there is a beginning infection, flu, or probably pneumonia in our older populations. But once they also get symptoms, sometimes it really magnifies, and we really need to do something about it, meaning preventive care, aside eating healthy and boosting our immune system, getting enough sleep, is to help them maintain their vaccination status.
When we return, we'll discuss some of the steps we can take to minimize the many challenges associated with aging. Your health is our mission. This is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Aging can't be avoided, but there are many things you can do to mitigate the environmental factors that influence this. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. There are things you can do to grow older with your body and mind and let them be as healthy as they possibly can. Dr. Karen, let's talk about what some of these are.
For our patient-centered, our advice of how to eat healthy, the right diet for them, how to exercise regularly, and what is the recommended exercise regimen for our older adult patients, including how to stay mentally active and getting enough sleep, and ensuring that they have, the vaccinations that are supposed to be given at their specific age.
Things that we can do to prevent things before they start is getting regular checkups. This is also very important for the elderly, and your doctor can help find problems even before they start. Dr. Sandy, what are the most important things to get checked?
It's so much easier to treat when we are able to prevent. It's difficult to run after diseases when they are already there, when in fact we can prevent them from happening in the first place. So even if we cannot prevent aging, we can minimize or mitigate the risks of developing diseases as you age. So one of the things I always tell patients is go see your doctor even if you are well. See, the mindset of the Filipino is they only see doctors when they are sick.
Dr. Karen, what kind of food should we be eating?
Foods that lots of nutrient with less calories. And this would include your fruits and vegetables. Choose different types. The more colorful it is, the better. Whole grains like cereals, oatmeals, and even brown rice, these are high in fiber as well. And yung mga fat-free or mga low-fat milk that will give us good sources of vitamin D and calcium.
Dr. Sandy, now that the elderly have to stay at home, what are the things that they can do to protect their mental health?
We encourage families and friends of older patients to make use of technology. Almost everyone now has a cell phone. It doesn't even have to be a high-tech cell phone. So regular phone calls, even if it's just to say hi, to ask if they've eaten, to ask how they're feeling, helps. They don't have to do it on a daily basis for patients with number of children or those that are living abroad, I make them make a schedule so they can do a rotational call so that at least every day there's 1 or 2 people that check up on the older patients.
And Doc Sandy, what's your advice for those who are becoming older and having trouble sleeping?
Usually problems in sleeping is what we call a sleep hygiene problem. It's really behavioral. Because old patients are mostly at home now and don't have a lot of activity also, what they end up doing is taking long naps in the morning and in the afternoon. So much so that when they sleep in the evening, they're able to sleep maybe 3-4 hours and then they're wide awake again. But if you count the actual number of hours that they were asleep, it goes all the way up to 8 to 10 hours per day, simply because they take very long naps. So number 1 is to avoid very long naps. Number 2 is to avoid any caffeinated drinks after 3 or 4 p.m. so that it doesn't keep them awake at night. And 3 is to reduce any sort of stimulation in their bedroom. TVs, radios, lights.
Dr. Sandy, please share with us some simple things that we can do to have a more positive outlook in life.
Don't think about growing old. Some people obsess on their age that they dread turning 60. Again, it's just really a mindset. Just because you turn a year older every year doesn't mean that there has to be a limitation in the activities that you can do or in the things that you think you can do. Just remain active physically, socially, and mentally, and everything will follow after that.
And Dr. Karen, what's your advice for our viewers?
Self-care is important. They're very obsessed with that age that they're looking forward to. Maybe they have to be obsessed now with doing self-care, and it has to be a multidimensional approach, not only physical, mental, but also their spiritual health. So I think that's a short advice for our older adults.
Thank you, geriatrician Dr. Lourdes Carolina Dumlao and family medicine specialist Dr. Karen Estepa Garcia. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this has been MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
Manada ba tu pregunta? Tiene ba tu duda? Apekto ba tu na istorya? Preparo ba tu? Dale el confianza? Sin mancha y sin duda. Manjunto con el vosotros lifetime friend.
Yo si Ronda Gisela Castes Santos. Sir, ka eleksyon. So, debe, uwi kita mga palabra din mga kandidato si ko sa sila ay opreseka natin. Yo si Ronda